Okay, so I jacked my quad up the other day to take the wheels off to check the brakes, and wheels were wobbling. Not one, not two, all four. Only 1,400 kilometers on this machine. Wheel bearings are gone. Needless to say, I was not happy. Talked to the dealer, not under warranty. They said wheel bearings are a wearable item on a quad. Now, I've been involved with automotive for years, over 3/4 of my life. Never heard of wheel bearings being a wearable item, but apparently they are. So I started doing some research. This is a common problem. Can-Ams, Yamahas, Grizzlies, the Arctic Cats. In the forums, all these guys are having wheel bearing problems, and anytime after like 1,000 kilometers is on them, and I'm like, this is insane, what's going on? So, well, I'm mechanical, so what I did, I pulled one apart. Have a look. So there's the front left out of it. I had to take the spindle out. You can see the drive shaft there and the upper lower ball joint. Come back over here, and here's the spindle. And yeah, I've washed it all up now, cleaned it. There's the bearing. Now, this is supposed to be a sealed bearing, but I took it apart. That's rust and water. That's not how this is supposed to look. Sealed bearing, yeah, okay. Still lets water in. Here's the insert. Oops, here's the insert that comes out of this side. Rust. Not much of a sealing job going on here, even though they say they're sealed. So, I'm not willing to do this every 1,000 kilometers. If you can't do it yourself, it's probably going to cost you $1,000, maybe more, at the dealer to have 4 wheel bearings replaced. Don't know if you can afford that every 1,000 kilometers or so, but who knows? Now, to be fair, as you've seen from my videos, I do a lot more mud and a lot more water than most people. Some people think I'm crazy. I do so much, actually. This will definitely contribute to it. But it doesn't mean it's not going to happen, because your wheel bearing, here's your tire, okay? Your wheel bearing is right there. So if you're in water this deep, oh, that's about a foot. You're getting water in your wheel bearings. Okay, so originally I was going to do a video showing you how to change wheel bearings, but I realized that's kind of nuts because it takes a lot of specialty equipment to be able to actually change the bearing itself. If you don't have that specialty equipment, it doesn't matter because you can't do the job. And if you do have the specialty equipment, well, you probably already know how to do it. So I'm not going to show you how to change the bearing itself, but what you do need to do, and you can save yourself a lot of time and money, is take it apart. And you just need a couple of specialty tools for that. A 36mm socket and a torque wrench. Okay, so what you're gonna do, you're gonna take your wheel off, and then once you take the wheel off, you're gonna see your brake assembly. You're gonna need to take the brake assembly off and just move that up there out of the way. Once you've taken the brake assembly off, you have your hub and rotor. And the only thing holding that on is the axle nut, which goes on here. So you take the cotter pin out of here, you take your 36mm socket, put it on, take the axle nut off, okay? And from there, you have your lower ball joint down here, and there's a bolt go through. You'll see, you undo the nut and bolt, take the bolt out, give that a whack with a sledgehammer, not too hard, but a good solid whack, it'll drop right out. Same with the upper one. Okay, there's the upper ball joint. The kingpin is going to be on there, and just let me grab the spindle here and I can show you that. So that's going to be in there like that, and the kingpin's going to be on there. You undo that castle nut, take the cotter pin out, take the castle nut off. Once again, give it a good solid whack, and it should just drop off. Don't use a pickle fork. If you use a pickle fork to take this apart, then you're going to destroy the boot on the ball joint. You don't want to do that. If you don't know what a pickle fork is, well, that's kind of good because you don't know what to do there anyway. Just take this apart, and this is going to be sitting on here like this. Just give this a good solid whack, and it should drop right off. And the third one is the tie rod end for your steering. Once again, it goes through this hole right here like that, and there'll be a nut on the bottom side. You take the cotter pin out, take the nut off, give it a good whack, and out it comes. Okay, just be careful not to beat on the threads. You definitely don't want to do that. Okay. Yeah, while I was doing it, I made my ball joints greasable. If you don't have the tools and equipment, once again, you won't be able to do that. Can't do the tie rod, it's too small. Okay, so once you have the spindle out, you can take this to any automotive shop that can do bearings. So if you have somebody at your place, it does not have to be a quad shop for this. It can be any place that'll press a bearing, maybe a machine shop. And they'll press the old bearing out. They got to take the snap ring off, press the old bearing out, press the new one in properly. It has to be done properly and specially, or you're going to destroy it. Put the snap ring back in. Now you got something that you can once again work with. Okay, so all you should have to pay them, it takes about 15-20 minutes per bearing to press out the old one and press in the new one. So they hopefully won't charge you too much just to do a bearing press. If you take in just the hub. If you take your whole machine in and they got to take it all apart, you're going to pay a lot more. Okay, so hopefully you can just take it apart like this, get this into them. They'll press the old bearing out, press the new one in. Okay. All right, so we're going to just put that down for a second. So whether you're doing a bearing replacement or you're just going to service your bearings, you need to take it apart like this because you need to use one of these right here, and that's a grease fitting for this type of bearing. If you notice on the inside of the bearing in there, if you can see it, there's a slot. That's a gap in there. Okay, so you're going to insert this in. Grease is going to go through the nipple, down through the inside, out this hole, and into that slot to grease your bearings. And you're going to want to do this for maintenance, not just bearing replacement. Because if you grease this, these bearings are going to last a lot longer for you. Okay? So we're going to show you how to do that. You can buy one of these at Life Outdoors in New Hamburg. They'll ship it to you. They're about 65, 66 bucks. Or you can get one from Amazon for about 30 bucks. They're just it's a 30 millimeter bearing greaser is what it would come up as. Has to be 30 millimeter fit, and it's a bearing greaser. And as I said, 66 bucks at Life Outdoors, they'll ship it to you, or 30 bucks on Amazon. Depends how much of a hurry you're in and if you can go get it or not. Okay, so let's try this again. So the first thing you want to do is preload it with grease. Why? If you don't, first thing you're going to be doing is pumping your bearings full of air. So you can see the grease coming out there. That's preloaded with grease now. So now you have it preloaded with grease. You're just going to take this and slide that into the inside of your bearing like that. And you're going to put the grease gun on it like that. And you're going to carefully start pumping. How much? You're going to be watching that bearing for grease coming out the seal. So far, not seeing any. Okay, so this took about 30 pumps of grease. Now you can see the grease coming out. The blue stuff is from the factory. The green stuff is mine. So now you can start to see the grease coming out. That bearing is full. Okay, so we took the fitting back out. You clean it all up, wipe it all off, get all the excess grease off. 30 pumps of grease even on a brand new bearing before grease started coming out. That just shows you there's not much grease in these things from the factory. Hopefully this one will last a lot longer. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and do the other one because I'm changing both bearings. Okay, so the second side took 38 pumps of grease to fill it. That was a brand new bearing and it had like hardly any grease in it. No wonder they're not lasting long. So filled it up and took my fitting here, put it in a baggie. Why? You want to keep that clean, because if that gets dirty, and grease is going to attract dirt, you're just going to pump it into your bearings the next time you use it. So put it in a baggie, keep it clean, put it back in your toolbox. How often should we do this? Well, from everything I've been able to learn, if you just do ordinary trail riding, regular quad riding, you should do this once a year. What does that mean? It means take it apart like this, grease those bearings, all 4 of them, once a year. This is classed now as regular maintenance on these. If you do a lot of water and mud like I do, you should also do it partway through the season. You want to keep the water out of these things, unless you want to be replacing bearings and spending a lot of money all the time. Okay, so we're going to put this back together now, and it's really not as difficult as it looks. I mean, it looks like it's a mess here and it's going to take years, but it's really not. You're going to take this and you're going to slide this back onto the drive shaft like that, so that that's in there, and you're going to push down your lower control arm. You're going to bring this over to here, put it into that ball joint, and you're going to take and put your nut on. Make sure the castellated part's pointing away. Okay, so there's the nut on that. My bolt rolled away here. Gotta grab it. Then you're gonna bring the lower one up. Put it, angle this just in a bit. Gonna need to be to fit onto there. And get it lined up with that hole. Okay. Stop. Okay, so we put a jack under here to hold this, shove it up in, and we're just going to take and put this bolt through. Might have to give it a little bit of persuasion. And take the tension off of that. Yes, I'm using the winch from the quad. Okay, so we got the bolt back in there, no problem. Put your nut on. Oh, it's catching on the rubber. I gotta lift it up a bit. Okay. And there, just gotta tighten that up. Okay, so now we're putting the tie rod in, and we got our nut started. We're starting to tighten it. If you're tightening your nut and there's a good chance that shaft may spin, just push down on this. That'll jam it into there on the spindle, on the Ackerman's part of the spindle, and then it'll hold that shaft while you tighten that nut up. That's only if it does start to spin, like mine did. Okay, so we got it tight now, but we need to go a little tighter to make the hole line up for the castellated nut. That should do. Okay, so we got the hole lined up. Now, once again, we just tap that in. Okay, so we got that in there seated properly. And we're just going to take and bend this around. Yeah. That can't come out. Now, basically, there's your spindle and all that back together. It's not that bad of a deal. Taking apart's just reverse to that. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to take the brake hub, which is right here, and we're going to put this on. But before we do, I'm going to go clean it up. Okay, so we got that all back together. Now we're going to take our hub and put that back on. And what's important here is this surface be good and clean, because that's going to jam up against the bearing when you tighten the nut and give it what's called bearing preload, which is really important. Bearings have to be torqued to the proper spec. The other thing, do you remember the gap, the crack that was inside the bearing, the slit that was in there that we showed you where the grease goes through? Well, this is going to close that so that the grease doesn't come back out. Okay, so when we compress this on, it's going to close it all up. So you just put it on however it goes, push that in there tight, and you're going to put your washer on and your nut. There, like that. And we're going to stop at that for a moment because now we're going to put the brakes back together because we're going to need the brakes to finish this job off. So we're going to take our backing plate for the brake caliper and our 2 bolts. We're going to slide that in there and bolt this back on here. Okay, so we got the backing plate back on. All right, and the rest of the brake job, well, I have another video for that as to how to put those back together. So if you don't know how to do it, go watch that quick and get these brakes back together. Okay, brakes are cleaned and back together as per the other video. Everything's good that way. So now we need to finish working on this nut. To put the proper preload on here, it has to have 100 foot-pounds of torque. I do happen to have my torque wrench ready and my 36 mil socket. Put that on, and we're just going to start going. But see, there's a problem. This is why you need the brakes done. You got to get the wife to go sit on the quad and hold the brake pedal down. Okay, so got the brake being held. Oh, hear that click? We're at 100 foot-pounds. Okay, so as you can see on the nut right here, the hole is over here on the castle, but the hole for the cotter pin's here. So that nut has to be tightened quite a bit more to get that hole line up. So we're going to do that now. Okay, don't know if you can see, but that's now lined up and we can put our cotter pin in. Okay, so we got this once again. We're going to turn our cotter pin, tap it down into place so it gets right down in that nut. Take pliers, because this cotter pin's a lot heavier. One side comes over this way. The other side, just bang it in there that way. And that's it, guys. That's it. Your bearing's done. Everything, that's it. It's that simple. And even filming this, it only took us about 30 minutes. Okay, so there we go. Both sides are done and back together. That took about an hour and 15 minutes to put it all together. Taking it apart was about 45 minutes. It's always faster coming apart. So a couple hours total to do the fronts. And I guess the part that burns me off more than anything is that nobody told me these had to be done. That these needed to be taken apart and greased and put back together once in a while. And it just ended up costing me a whole lot of extra money and time because of that. But you know, can't really blame the dealership. They're there to sell parts. That's their job. I just prefer not to have to do the bearings and replace them at the same time. I don't mind doing a couple hours work on it in the, you know, off-season type thing, because that's what we do. But I sure hate spending money on parts I didn't need to spend. If I'd have known about what you know now about needing to take these things apart and grease them, could have done a couple hours work and $10 tube of grease and had been done with it for another year. But anyway, that's the front's done. Now I'm going to do the backs, and they're a bit different. Not a lot, but a bit different, and I will do a quick video on that too, just to show you the difference. Since I have the wheels off and it's all sitting here anyway, might as well go through a grease job on this thing and do all the control arms and everything that way and get them all done at the same time. Hope you enjoyed this. Hope it helps. I hope you take it to heart and listen and take the advantage of the fact that you realize now these things need to be done. They need to be taken apart. They need to be greased. Or if you don't want to do it, you can just wait and leave it, let the bearings go out of it and spend a whole lot of money and still take it all apart and put it back together. Have a good one.